Welcome back, folks, to Investor Diaries. In the last video, we looked at the basics of renting versus investing. Let's assume that you've now made your decision to invest in a new property. Where do you start? What's your first step? Where do you go to? We'll be looking at some of these questions about the first step in this particular video.
Yeah, that's great. So most people typically think that the first step to buying a house is to meet a good real estate broker and then go from there. But that's not quite true. It's the first step is actually securing a pre-approval from your lender, typically your bank, right? So a pre-approval for mortgage typically is valid for 3 months, and there are a couple of things that you need to keep in mind. When you go for a pre-approval, first it does take a credit score hit, so you might need to actually time it closer towards buying your first property, right? It you have the 3 month cushion. And then the other factors to consider for pre-approval. Your lender might typically ask you these questions: whether are you buying a condo or a freehold property. The reason is condos typically have higher maintenance fees, and the lenders typically factor that into their calculation for a pre-approval. Um, Essentially, the lenders, what they're trying to do is they're going to ask you a bunch of questions, trying to understand what your net income in a month is, what kind of assets you have, and essentially determine what kind of borrowing capacity do you have based on your current net inflows and current outflows. That's where the maintenance costs, property taxes, etc., come into play. Now, your lender is typically going to ask you a few things for documentation, and this could be typically your ID, your bank account, investment statements, typically to know assets, any other assets that you have, maybe like a car, etc., or maybe other properties, or proof of income, pay stubs, a letter from employer, and information about your other debt. Like in the previous video, we talked about student debt, credit card debt, etc. So essentially, they want to know what is the net income that you have, what are the assets that you hold, and what are the liabilities that you have before determining the pre-approval or your borrowing capacity.
Yeah, so now as far as say the pre-approval is concerned, the question becomes, why is pre-approval so important?
Yeah.
And I think one of the major reasons is it gives you a kind of sense about what's your upper limit as far as your the price of the property is concerned.
Right.
Like, I'm not advocating for anybody to go to the max of their pre-approval, but we'll just take an example that if you have $50,000 with you and your pre-approval is $500,000, then 550 is the max that you can go to, of course, ignoring all the closing costs and any other associated costs that you might have. It also gives you a good sense of where do you start collating the money that you have. So for instance, you might have some savings, you might have some savings in your retirement accounts that you could potentially borrow. You could have some incentive by the government, such as say a first time home buyers plan, which is there in Canada, so on and so forth. So it really gives you a very solid starting point into the journey of getting approved for a mortgage. Now, there are a lot of things which people do, and there are the few do's and don'ts that I would like to talk about. So the first one is that the pre-approval should not be a yardstick into the price of the house that you're looking for. For instance, if you're looking for a one-bedroom condo and the one-bedroom condo in the region that you want is coming for $500,000, and you get pre-approved for $600,000, that should not be a reason for you to go ahead and buy a higher priced amount. So your purpose of buying a condo should supersede the pre-approval limit. So that's really, really important. The second thing that I would like to say is during that period, from the time you get your pre-approval to the time you close the house, so it's not the day you place the offer but the day the house officially belongs to you, I would say you should try to hold off on major purchases. And that's going to be helpful because During the time you get the pre-approval, you submit a few documents, you say that you've got this much of savings, and if you were to use a significant chunk of those savings in a major purchase, you might be in a problem and you might not be able to fulfill your obligations to the financial institution, and it might put you in a soup of probably even not getting finally approved for a mortgage. Because remember, a pre-approval is not an approval. So it's basically, there's a fine line, but it is basically contingent on you providing all those documents to the financial institution. The third one is don't apply for new credit. Now, there is definitely a credit check at the time you get a pre-approval. And in between, if you were to apply for, say, multiple credit cards or different credit products, in that case, you'll have multiple credit hits to your account. In this case, your credit score is going to come down. So if the financial institution were to do a credit check again, they would see that your credit score is very low, or your credit score has considerably reduced, and which could actually be of some impact to the final decision of that financial institution. And this is just a simple thought. It's like don't quit jobs or don't change jobs during that 3 month period. It's anyways a pretty stressful time when people buy the house, and you would want as few variables as possible. Now, if you want to change your job, that's another story in itself, and it will cause a lot of headaches. So the sense is that you should try not to change your jobs during that time. So these would be some of the do's and don'ts as far as a pre-approval is concerned.
Right. And then the next step is determining what your down payment is going to be, or what percentage or portion you would want to pay upfront or pay down while buying a property or buying a real estate investment, right? So one key factor here is a down payment less than 20%. So suppose you're putting a down payment of 20% on a property or above, then that's the upfront cost, and then you fund the remaining through the mortgage. But if you put less than 20%, typically that means you're required to take an insurance on the mortgage. Now, typically in Canada, you can refer to the CMHC website for an insurance for the calculation on what is going to be your insurance rate for 5% down payment, 10% down payment, and 15 and even 19%. But this is the key thing that we want to highlight here, is because if you were to go for a down payment of less than 20%, then you have to take this insurance, and that is going to be an additional outflow which you have to factor in, an additional monthly outflow that you have to factor in while you're looking at the properties and things like that. So just another thought, another factor to keep in mind in this journey to home ownership.
I hope you found a lot of useful information in this video about pre-approval, do's and don'ts. We'll continue with this mortgage series, and in the next video, we'll look at some of the more intricate and finer details as far as buying a mortgage is concerned, and possibly even consider an example with pure numbers so that you can see what are the things that you have to do if you are considering buying a new house.
So thanks for joining and tuning into this episode. Stay tuned for more on our home ownership / mortgage series. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.